Hello and welcome back. In this video, we're going to create a Jenkins file, a Makefile, credentials for GitHub in Jenkins, so Jenkins can pull our project on GitHub. We're also going to create a .env file inside the workspace, populate the .env file. We're going to install some plugins like the file operations plugin. Once we restarted Jenkins, then we should see our first build succeeding. Let's get to it. So Jenkins can be configured in a few different ways. One of them is through the Jenkinsfile. Let's create this file. Let's open up our project in Visual Studio Code. Open folder, project, and our folder. Let's create a so-called Jenkins file. New file. Let's call it Jenkinsfile. I already have the file content on my clipboard, so let's talk a little bit about the contents of this file. We have our pipeline section, agent ending, and then stages. These are independent from AWS. First, we want to know if we have Docker installed. If we run this pipeline on another machine where Docker is not installed, then it would fail straight away. Then we want to clear out our running Docker containers, remove them all up, and then we're going to start Docker. We're going to create another file called a Makefile. The reason we need a Makefile is to set up some variables. Then we're simply displaying the running Docker containers. Then quite simply, we run the composer install as we did before inside the appropriate Docker container. If you're eagle-eyed, that you might spot a little error in here. So we're installing the composer packages, and then immediately we're trying to run the tests. However, we don't have the .env file in the GitHub repo. Let's see if it's there actually. I'm not sure. Okay, brilliant. So it's not in there. There's no .env file inside our GitHub repository. Generally, it's not considered a good practice to include any .env file inside your GitHub repositories, so I would advise you not to do it. However, we can actually create our pipeline now. Even though it's going to fail, let's not worry about it. Let's create a pipeline. In order to do this, first we need to create credentials inside of Jenkins for GitHub. Manage Jenkins, and then we're going to create credentials. Manage credentials. Let's create new credentials. Username should be SSH username with private key. ID maybe GitHub. I've created these files earlier, so let's take the content of this private key file and paste it in here. So now we have this set of credentials. So technically, if we create a new pipeline now, it should be maybe Laravel test pipeline, testing Laravel CI/CD. And we want the pipeline script from the GitHub repo, repository URL. It's going to be just this. There you go. It takes a little while for it to retry polling the repository with our credentials, but then once it eventually succeeds, then this big red error message should go away. The branch is main. It's no longer called master by default. Jenkinsfile, and now we can save this pipeline, and actually we can try it out. However, as I told you, I know for sure that this will fail at the step of trying to run the tests without a .env file. Let's see if everything else is working. Okay, of course, we have never committed the Jenkins file into the repository. let's do this. Jenkinsfile added. Okay. Let's verify it. If I refresh the page, I should see the Jenkins file in the repository. So now, if you rerun the pipeline, it should go a little bit further, even though it's still going to fail, which is expected, but we can see a couple of things. So first thing first, it has managed to copy our code base. You can see that the Docker containers are actually running, and then it tries to run the tests. So now, in fact, the docker compose command has successfully started our Docker containers. So what's missing is the Makefile. So we're going to create a Makefile. And through this file, we're going to start Docker compose. It sets some environment variables such as user ID, group ID, and user. Let's save this file. Let's not make the same mistake again. Let's commit this straight away to our repository. Makefile added. But let's try to run the make command. Make up. You can see that the make is not installed. Let's install it. Make has finished installing. Let's try again. Make. When run from the command line, it should work identical to running docker compose up-d directly. So now let's run the pipeline again. The pipeline is running yet again. You can see real time as it's building the Docker containers. It's installing PHP plugins. Everything should be all fine up until the point where it's trying to run the tests, and then it's going to realize that there's no .env file. The pipeline has now finished. You can see it's failed. Let's see what actually happened during the installation. Let's see what happened during the build. There's quite a lot actually. So we have successfully fetched the codebase from the GitHub repository. We're verifying Docker. We can see that Docker is up and running. Then we're removing the running Docker containers. We're running docker compose up-d. So Docker would go ahead and create all the containers for us to run. You can see loads of package installations and setups and configurations, things like that. So now you can see that the composer install command is running. It's downloading the composer packages. It looks like it's working all fine. And then, as a last step, it's trying to run the tests. So what's going on with those tests? This one's passed, but this one has failed. So missing app key exception. That's exactly what we're expecting, because there's no application encryption key, because we do not have any .env file. So let's fix it. Let's see where is the application actually in our file system. So it says /var lib Jenkins workspace Laravel test. We want to create a folder for our .env files. Let's go ahead and do this. Sudo here. And I want this to be called ems. In this, maybe Laravel test. Whatever. In this folder, I'm going to copy the content of the .env file. So, I don't know, a .env file. So this is where our actual .env file will be located. Let's copy it. Let's paste it. Let's save it. As we already installed the file operations plugin, we can add a new stage into our Jenkins file to copy the .env file from this holding directory straight to our project directory. Let's do just that. It's probably quicker if I just copy and paste the stage here. Before running the tests, let's take this file. Let's verify that our file is indeed in there. So with this stage and this .env file in place, we can go ahead and try to build the application again. Let's see if it succeeds this time. And copy stage edit. Let's run the build, and sure enough, we have a success. Look at that. That's amazing, isn't it? Now we know that even though there's no .env file inside the repository, we do have a .env file at build time. In the next video, we're going to create an artifact, so it's going to be really exciting stuff. I really hope to see you in the next video.